A single dad was denied a bank loan. Hours later, the bank CEO learned he had saved her son. The rejection letter slipped from Marcus Hale's fingers as he stood outside the city's largest bank under the bright afternoon sun, the paper landing face down on the pavement like it already knew it wasn't wanted. Every plan he made for his boy's future folded up inside that single sheet of paper. The bank had refused his loan without hesitation. But before that same day would end, fate would reveal an unbelievable truth. The powerful CEO of the bank would discover that the struggling single father she had turned away that morning was the very man who, hours later, would throw himself in front of a moving car to save her son. Before we begin, if you believe kindness and second chances can change a life, hit like, drop a comment, share this with someone who needs it, and subscribe to USA Enlightened Stories. Your support keeps these stories coming every week. Marcus Hale had never planned on doing this alone. 4 years earlier, a sudden illness took his wife in the space of 6 weeks, and left him raising his 8-year-old son, Eli, by himself. Every morning before sunrise, Marcus scrambled eggs, packed Eli's lunch with a note tucked inside, sometimes just, "Have a good day, bud," and then drove to whatever job site needed a carpenter that week. His hands were calloused and nicked from 20 years of honest work, but he never once complained. Every board he cut, every nail he drove home, was for one reason: Eli. Business had been slow for months. 2 clients hadn't paid. His table saw was held together with a hose clamp. Rent was 3 weeks late. Then came a job that could fix everything. A general contractor offered him a multi-year subcontract on a new housing development, but Marcus needed real equipment to take it on. That meant a loan. He gathered every tax return, every invoice, every scrap of proof that he was a man who paid his debts, and walked into Whitmore National Bank believing his track record would speak for itself. Instead, the loan officer flipped through the folder, paused on a red number from 8 months back, and slid the papers back across the desk. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hale. Given the recent losses, we can't approve this." Marcus nodded, said, "I understand," picked up his folder, and walked out before his voice could betray him. Outside, he stood on the sidewalk for a moment, jaw tight, and said under his breath, "Okay, something else then." He promised Eli he'd never stop trying, and a rejection letter wasn't going to be what broke that promise. Walking home through downtown, he passed a park where kids shrieked with laughter, chasing bubbles and balloons in the last of the afternoon light. A red balloon slipped out of a small boy's grip and drifted toward the curb. The boy, maybe 6, sneakers untied, ran after it without looking up. A block down, an SUV blew through the intersection, going too fast to stop. Someone screamed. Marcus didn't think. He dropped the folder mid-stride, closed the distance in 4 strides, and hit the boy at a full run, wrapping him up and rolling both of them across the asphalt as the SUV's mirror clipped the air where they'd just been standing. For a second, the street went completely silent. Then the boy started crying, scared, not hurt. Marcus's shoulder had taken the brunt of the fall. Blood was already soaking through his shirt. He grinned through it anyway. Hey, you're okay. That was a good save on my part, huh?" The boy managed a shaky laugh. By the time paramedics pushed through the gathering crowd, Marcus had already checked twice that the boy was breathing fine, unhurt beyond a scare, and slipped away before anyone thought to ask his name. He didn't offer it. In his mind, any parent would have done the same. 2 hours later, Elaine Whitmore, CEO of Whitmore National Bank, got the call every parent dreads. Her son, Benjamin, had nearly been hit by a car. She left a board meeting mid-sentence and reached the hospital in 11 minutes, her hands shaking too hard to sign the check-in forms. Benjamin was fine, shaken, scraped, held together by a stranger's arms. "A man just grabbed him," a nurse told her. "Nobody got his name. He walked off before we could stop him." That wasn't good enough for Elaine. She had her security team pull every traffic and storefront camera near the intersection. It took 40 minutes. When the still image finally loaded on the conference room screen, the room went quiet. Elaine recognized him immediately, not from the footage, but from a loan file that was still sitting, unresolved, in her inbox. The man who'd saved her son was the same man her bank had turned down that morning. She pulled his file herself before anyone could stop her. Page by page, the shock turned into something heavier. Yes, there were losses. One bad stretch, 8 months back, clearly tied to a client who defaulted. But behind that were 4 years of on-time payments, steady contracts, and a debt-to-income ratio that any other week would have sailed through approval. The bank hadn't measured the man. It had measured one bad quarter and called it the whole story. The next morning, Elaine drove to the address on the loan application herself. No assistant, no driver. She found Marcus in his yard, repairing a fence post that had rotted through, his injured shoulder still stiff. Eli sat nearby, painting an old coffee can bright yellow. The house was small, the paint peeling on one side, but there was a hand-drawn, "World's Best Dad" sign taped in the front window that told its own story. "Mr. Hale," Elaine said, and had to stop for a second before continuing. "You saved my son yesterday. I don't think you know who I am." Marcus straightened up, wiping his hands on his jeans. Should I? I run Whitmore National. I'm the one who denied your loan yesterday morning. He actually laughed, not unkindly. Small world. Then, quieter. I didn't know whose kid he was. Wouldn't have mattered. Every kid deserves to make it home. That line stayed with Elaine longer than anything said in the boardroom that week. She personally reopened his application that afternoon. Full approval. Better terms than he'd even asked for. But she didn't stop at one file. Within a month, she'd launched a bank-wide policy requiring loan officers to weigh a full history, not a single bad season, a program that quietly became known internally as the Hale Standard. Within a year, Marcus's business hadn't just recovered, it had grown past anything he'd imagined. He finished the housing contract, hired 3 local guys who needed the work as much as he once had, and finally, didn't have to check the mailbox with dread. That spring, the bank held a small event honoring local business owners who'd turned setbacks into second chances. Marcus stood on the stage with Eli beside him, holding a plaque he'd probably put in the garage instead of on a wall, and said only, "I just wanted to build things. Turns out sometimes you build people up too." Elaine watched from the front row, her hand resting on Benjamin's shoulder, thinking that the man she'd once flagged as too risky had turned out to be the safest bet she never took. If this story got to you, kindness always finds a way. Below, we read everyone. Marcus caught Eli's eye across the stage and gave him a small nod, the kind that says everything without a word. The loan had saved the business, but something else, something no interest rate could measure, had saved a lot more than that. If this one hit you the right way, like it, share it, and subscribe to USA Enlightened Stories. New stories every week, because kindness is still out there, waiting on the right moment.